Good day everyone, and welcome back. Have you ever found yourself standing before an ancient monument, looking up at carved stone faces of gods and kings, and wondered where the human being ends and the divine myth begins? Today I'd like to navigate your thoughts into a profound historical paradox: how mortal men, localized catastrophes, and tribal conflicts were gradually rewritten over centuries to construct the grand mythologies that still shape human civilization. Human memory is a notoriously fragile record. Before the advent of widespread literacy, history existed entirely in the breath of oral storytellers. But as stories passed across generations down the line of campfires, a natural psychological phenomenon took hold. Stories adapt, embellish, and scale up to survive. Take, for instance, the legendary King Gilgamesh of Uruk. Archaeological evidence suggests that Gilgamesh was likely a real historical monarch who ruled around 2600 BCE in southern Mesopotamia. Yet, within a few centuries of his death, tablets began describing him not merely as a builder of city walls, but as a demigod who battled cosmic beasts and sought physical immortality. Why does this happen? When we analyze early literature through an archaeological and textual lens, we notice a process called eunemerism, the tendency of human societies to deify actual historical personages over time. A successful chieftain becomes a hero becomes a legend eventually becomes an eternal deity. We see a similar trajectory when examining the early layers of the Rigveda. Rather than timeless, fixed dogmas, these ancient Sanskrit hymns reflect a nomadic pastoral society grappling with the raw power of natural forces: monsoons, lightning, rivers, and fire. The thunderous atmospheric phenomena were personified as deities like Indra and Agni. To the ancient mind, attributing agency to the natural world was not a foolish mistake. It was a survival mechanism driven by what psychologists call hyperactive agency detection. If a storm hits or a crop fails, assuming an invisible, conscious entity caused it allows humans to feel they can influence the outcome through ritual, sacrifice, or good behavior. Linguistic reconstruction gives us further fascinating empirical evidence. By comparing Sanskrit, ancient Greek, Latin, and Hittite, historical linguists discovered the shared Proto-Indo-European sky god, Dies Ph-Tutatars. Over centuries, this single ancestral concept evolved into Zeus in Greece, Jupiter in Rome, and Dies Pieta in early Vedic traditions. This structural continuity reveals that mythological pantheons are not unique, isolated divine revelations given to specific favored peoples. Instead, they are branches of a shared human cultural tree, mutating based on geography, climate, and contact with neighboring civilizations. Beyond explaining nature, mythology quickly served a powerful political utility. Throughout history, rulers recognized that establishing order over vast populations required more than just physical force. It required divine sanction. If a king claims his lineage stems from the sun or a storm god, defying his decree becomes not just a political act, but a cosmic transgression. When we critically analyze epic literature, such as the Homeric epics or the Indian epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, textual stratigraphy reveals distinct historical layers added across centuries. Earlier layers often portray characters with human vulnerabilities and regional political motives, whereas later interpolations elevate them to divine avatars. This does not diminish these epics, rather it makes them far more interesting. They are living historical strata literary time capsules that document how political structures, ethical norms, and theological ideas evolved over hundreds of years of human development. Consider the ubiquitous Great Flood motif found across Mesopotamian, biblical, Indian, and Mesoamerican mythologies. Is this proof of a single global deluge that submerged mountain peaks? The geological and empirical evidence says no. There is no global flood layer in Earth's geological record. However, geological evidence does show severe localized catastrophic flooding in river valleys like the Tigris and Euphrates around 2900 BCE. To a regional agrarian community whose entire known world was a single valley, a devastating localized flood was, for all practical purposes, the end of the world. The story was remembered, exaggerated, and cosmicized. Local survival became divine intervention. This pattern demonstrates how human culture routinely elevates real localized trauma into universal cosmic drama. Celestial observation played a monumental role as well. Early civilizations observed the predictable cycles of stars and planets with incredible precision. Without scientific instruments, these movements were interpreted as divine battles, seasonal warnings, and cosmic portents. We must also confront our own cognitive biases when examining these topics. Confirmation bias often leads people to accept claims that align with their cultural upbringing, while applying harsh skepticism to the supernatural claims of other traditions. A truly rational mindset requires applying identical evidentiary standards across the board. When pseudoscience or literalism attempts to frame ancient mythological poetry as exact literal history or advanced quantum physics, it does a disservice to both modern science and ancient literature. Poetry is diminished when forced to act as a textbook. Understanding the difference between descriptive claims, what ancient people believed happened, and normative claims, how we ought to live today, is essential for intellectual honesty. Ancient moral frameworks were designed for small-scale tribal survival in a brutal world, not universal modern ethics. By separating historical empirical facts from theological interpretations, we preserve scientific temper. We don't need to destroy or mock ancient myths. We simply need to understand them for what they truly are: monuments to human imagination, and early attempts to make sense of a complex cosmos. Steelmaning the role of myth reveals its profound value. Stories allowed early human groups to cooperate in massive numbers by shared belief systems. Uniquely among animals, humans can build cities based on shared abstractions. So where does this leave us? Is mythology merely a collection of falsehoods? No. It is the footprint of human intellectual evolution. It shows us how our ancestors wrestled with mortality, ethics, authority, and awe, long before we had the tools of modern empirical science. When we look at the gods of the past, we are ultimately looking into a mirror. We see our own fears, our own aspirations, and our enduring desire to find order amidst the chaos of existence. Maintaining epistemic humility means being comfortable saying, "We do not know everything about the past." Where archaeological and textual evidence is sparse, we must resist the temptation to substitute comfortable certainty for scientific rigor. If you value this kind of critical, nuanced inquiry into history, science, and human thought, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Join our community of curious minds dedicated to asking better questions and seeking truth through evidence. I leave you today with this lingering thought. As we continue to unlock the empirical secrets of the universe, will our current ideas be viewed by future civilizations as facts, or as the modern myths of an inquisitive species still finding its way? Stay skeptical, stay curious, and good day.